Hi, I'm Whitney Espich, the CEO of the MIT Alumni Association, and I hope you enjoy this digital production created for alumni and friends like you.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Whitney Espich. I'm CEO of the MIT Alumni Association, and it is truly my pleasure to welcome you here tonight. It has been so long since we have been able to be together in person that convening us all virtually really actually feels very special. I'm grateful for your time and for your interest in and your service to MIT. So I start with a really warm thank you. Tonight's program is one of the partner programs arranged as part of this month's MIT Alumni Forum topic, In Service to Humankind. The forum is a new series of online gatherings that address global challenges and highlight the work of our alumni in communities who are helping to make a better world. Tonight's program will allow us to hear about an exciting service initiative currently being managed by MIT alumni in Spain. And I would like to take this opportunity to give you a few updates ahead of the program from the MIT Alumni Association overall, as well as a chance to meet with and hear from the current Alumni Association president, Annalisa Weigel. So I'd like to use my time with you to cover some recent updates, including the latest figures for our global alumni community, the new Alumni Lounge in Building 10, the new Alumni Association Mark, several upcoming winter and spring events, and our tech reunion celebration this May. Annalisa will then share some reflections on her role as the association board president and provide an update on the MIT Alumni Better World Service Initiative. So let's move to the overall population. In terms of our community as of fiscal year 2022, we have nearly 143,000 alumni living around the world. Of those, 17% are in international markets. Hello to you all. And most impressive to me is that we are in contact with 96% of our alumni by email or postal mail. And this is even with GDPR considerations. So we are just so grateful that our alumni are able to maintain with us open lines of communication that really allow us to reach so many of you. I'd like to talk a little bit about alumni communities. There are many ways through which you can connect with each other and back to MIT. If you are not connected with each other already, we're going to talk about a few pathways here. I'd like to encourage you to consider joining in, either virtually or in person, one of these communities that we're going to go over. First, our regional clubs and ambassadors provide connections on the local level, connecting our alumni where they live and where they work with one another. We have over 122 different communities in various states or countries, particularly active clubs in recent months in Europe, are Germany, Switzerland, and Spain. And the collaboration among our European clubs has been very strong. However, if you live where no regional presence already exists, please reach out to our alumni outreach team to express interest in getting a group connected in your area. We also have 19 affinity and shared interest groups. These allow our alumni to gather by attributes that are important to your identities or interests and bring those with commonalities together. These groups provide an opportunity for connection regardless of location. A great example is the efforts that AMITA, the Association of MIT Alumni, is making to expand programming specifically for alumni in Europe. And as is the case with many of our alumni in Europe, you are a graduate exclusive alumnus whose experience at MIT might be different than those from undergraduate only. There is a place and community for you with connection points reflected of your needs, and we'd love to help you find out about that. Speaking of place, I'm excited to announce that the alumni now have a place to meet others and connect right on the Infinite Corridor in the new Alumni Lounge. Located in 10100, just steps from Memorial Lobby and Killian Court, this beautiful new home for alumni on the Infinite Corridor is largely complete. Here's an image of the Alumni Lounge, which includes a space for meetings for you and for meeting friends or meeting with people in the association or resource development, perhaps. We are still working on finishing touches with the decor, but we hope that you will come sometime soon when the pandemic allows travel with ease. This is going to be your space in the heart of MIT, and we are really so happy to have delivered on this request of our alumni to bring you all back into the main group. So gifts to support this renovation are very welcome. I can't pause without saying that. We are planning a grand opening during tech reunions and would love to include you in those festivities. Another exciting development is that in the early portion of this fiscal year, we launched a new MIT alumni mark. I hope you're starting to notice that on websites and emails. And also soon you'll start to see it on swag, especially for those of you who are able to come to reunions in the spring. I hope you've started to notice this change and that you like it. All right, so okay, as an association, we have many activities planned for the coming months. I'm very happy to show you an overview of our spring plans and invite you to participate and spread the word. Here are some of our spring events. First, 3 virtual MIT Alumni Forum events, including In Service to Humankind, with opportunities for surrounding events like this gathering today. As more alumni can access the campus, there will be Alumni Lounge soft opening events in March through May. These soft open opportunities will be a chance for the community to experience the space and demonstrate this as an asset and a space that alumni can utilize personally. We are, for example, working with the Club of Boston to just kind of test run the space and make sure everything works and that we can make it available to alumni for activities or just for casual use. The MIT 24-hour challenge will be held on Thursday, March 10th, just ahead of Pi Day. This is an important day of giving for the alumni community, and everyone's participation, big or small, in support of projects that need funding support is really appreciated. Please spread the word about this and participate yourself. And of course, tech reunions will be held from May 27th to the 29th. More about that in a minute. Virtual international events will continue to take place as long as the pandemic requires, and probably even beyond, including this one and a program in March for alumni who live in Asia. This latter program is associated with the Women in Leadership Alumni Forum programming. In general, for events, we are seeing shifts in behavior and attendance. Maybe you are too in your clubs and groups. We're navigating these changes along with the rest of the world riding the transition wave. And we'll have more details that will follow in the spring about when we can return to in-person, which parts of the virtual world have really allowed us to stay connected with, especially our international community, and which things will continue even as we transition, as we hope we will, to more in-person on balance than virtual. We remain really optimistic that we'll be able to resume regional in-person events by April of this year. But as we've all come to learn in this pandemic, things change week to week. And I thank you for your patience and your ongoing connection to MIT, even in this environment. All right, so now we have Toast to Tech here on the slide, I hope, yes. Tech reunions and the connections that are made over the course of these events are really valued by all of our alumni and by MIT, and we will look forward to welcoming alumni back to campus and to providing opportunities that are available only when our alumni are gathered on the physical campus and here in Boston. As we endeavor to create an inspiring set of programs for reunions, we will be working within COVID-19 safety guidelines, running programming in alignment with guidelines and policies from MIT and the City of Cambridge. Those alumni who graduated in 2021 and 2020 will be invited back to campus for a special celebration. Not quite a commencement do-over, but certainly that flavor of commencement celebration to be held on May 28th. So far, over 1,200 alumni, recent alumni, have already expressed interest in taking part in this special opportunity. I think if those numbers hold, plus reunions, we're going to have a really exciting weekend here in Cambridge in May, and people should start making their plans now. For those who would have celebrated the 50th reunion and 25th reunions in 2020 and 21, there will also be events specifically designed for them. The Cardinal and Gray graduates of 1970, 71, and 72 will all be included in the procession for the main commencement ceremony, where they will proudly show off their red jackets. I'm so happy that that tradition is going to return to Killian Court. And while alumni are excited about being back on campus, we are including virtual components as part of reunions. We recognize that the virtual reunions of the last 2 years have provided wonderful opportunities for alumni to connect with one another, even if they couldn't travel. These virtual events serve to increase excitement about tech reunions and are an opportunity for those who cannot attend in person to celebrate with their classmates. Okay, and so that is reunions. And I hope, again, you are starting to get excited about your own or those of your friends, and that you'll spread the word that we have exciting plans in place. And with that as the closer, I'd like to say that it's my pleasure now to introduce our next speaker, Annalisa Weigel. Annalisa began her one-year term as president of the MIT Alumni Association this past July. Annalisa's long history with MIT includes degrees from the Department of Aeronautics and Astronautics, where she later went on to serve as an assistant professor for several years. Also the program on Science, Technology, and Society, and the Engineering Systems Division. Annalisa, I will now hand the reins over to you.
Thank you so much, Whitney. So welcome everybody, and thank you, Whitney. It's an honor to be here this evening. I just wanted to say there are many exciting activities and programs planned over the next few months, and I'm always impressed with the many changes that are taking place with COVID and on-campus protocols, and the way in which we continue to remain flexible and we continue to deliver quality content and opportunities for connection to the alumni community. And I encourage all of you to join in at these events and invite a friend to come with you as well. So it's just really a great honor to be with you today. And I'd like to share some information briefly about the Alumni Association Board of Directors and additional work that is coming from the Alumni Association. So the mission of the Alumni Association is to engage and inspire the global MIT community to make a better world. I'm proud to serve with this distinguished group of alumni here on this year's Board of Directors. The Alumni Association really strives to have a diverse board that is representative of our global community. The board serves as a conduit to ensure that we're gathering alumni sentiments and perspectives. Now, having reached the midpoint of my time as president of the Alumni Association, I am reflecting back on the work of the board and just how appreciative I am about the enthusiasm and engagement of our alumni to stay connected to each other and back to the Institute. Your willingness to volunteer for your class or club, to advise students, to interview prospective students, or to organize a club event is inspiring, and I offer my deepest gratitude for all your hard work on that. Whether you volunteer for MIT, or donate to the annual fund, or attend events, your engagement is really important. The lifelong commitment of our alumni continues to create a vibrant global community. The partnership between alumni volunteers and the professional staff, along with the co-created Alumni Association strategic plan, creates a foundation for our success. With each passing year, this partnership has strengthened our organization. It has also created some of the exciting programming that Whitney shared with you, and an initiative I would like to highlight now, the MIT Better World Service Initiative. We know that our alumni are doing work in their local communities and in broader communities to make a better world. The board, as well as our alumni, saw an opportunity for the Alumni Association to serve as a platform to facilitate connections of alumni doing service or interested in service, to post service projects, and to highlight the contributions our alumni are making around that world. The MIT Alumni Better World Service Initiative is a powerful project to show the MIT community and the world that our alumni are a force multiplier for good. There are multiple ways that alumni can get involved. Alumni can create a project. They can post a project to a site so that others can join it. They can become part of a project someone else has created. They can share a service story, or they can nominate someone to recognize their service. In the months ahead, alumni will submit service hours as a way of illustrating the collective value of the service our alumni provide to the world. Promotion of the program will be ongoing on the association's digital platforms, also through editorial content and by events such as this one, and most of all through peer-to-peer engagement and through our service ambassadors. As of today, here's our progress. Currently, there are 32 active service projects. These projects are taking place in 6 countries and 12 US states. There are over 800 recorded community service hours. And the 35 nominations have been submitted already for the Service Award. To provide us with a bit more detail, I would like to introduce Tim Mansfield, Director of Alumni Volunteer Experience, who oversees this program on the staff side of the Alumni Association. Over to you, Tim.
Thank you, Annalisa. It's my pleasure to provide an introduction and a brief tour of the platform that we have created for the use of our alumni around this initiative. Visitors to the Better World Service Initiative website usually fall into several categories. One, those that are interested in learning more about projects that others have created and they have a willingness to join. Two, it can include alumni who are creating service projects and opening them up for other alumni to participate. Three, they could be individuals who want to record hours of service in their own communities. Or four, anyone interested in nominating an alumnus for the Better World Service Award. This is a brief picture of the initiative platform. Once logged in, viewers will see different tabs at the top of the screen, offering access to different parts of the service initiative. Here, users can submit information about a project they are starting by providing dates, times, and photos for others to engage. On this page, viewers can also review all of the active projects and read about the amazing ideas that fellow alumni have generated for the initiative. For example, Joseph Pepe Fields, class of '67, is touring the United States in an RV building houses for Habitat for Humanity. His project, called Caravanners, invites other alumni to join him in this effort. We have seen some early success with the Better World Alumni Service Initiative that Annalisa helped describe, with over 30 projects and over 35 nominations for the Service Award. However, we remind alumni that you can also record your own volunteer service that you are performing in your own communities. We hope you help us reach our goal of 500 alumni participants in this exciting initiative. Okay. And there is a link to the Better World Service Initiative platform. It's alum.mit.edu/service-initiative. And now I'm pleased to introduce Dorota Chapko from the class of 2012. Dorota serves as a Better World Service Ambassador, which means that she and others help advise the staff on reaching our goals and serving as champions for the initiative. Dorota is a global and creative mixed methods research scientist with a proven record of leading health data science projects and digital projects underpinned by ethical best practice and strong patient, public, and user-led engagement internationally. She is currently Research Fellow and Deputy Theme Lead for Patient, Public, and Communities Involvement in Health Research at the School of Public Health, Imperial College London, and the National Institute for Health Research, Applied Research Collaboration, Northwest London. Dorota holds a PhD in Public Health and a BS in Course 9 and 21A from MIT, which is the Brain and Cognitive Sciences and Anthropology Division. Dorota has been studying the social and biological aspects of the brain and health at institutions in the United States and the UK, as well as at research hospitals in Germany, Israel, and in India. She has been fortunate to complement this with professional experiences working or volunteering at health and social care institutions in Denmark, Poland, Moldova, and in Alaska, as well as experiencing stories of health and resilience in Turkey. These have inspired her to pursue healthcare research that is receptive and responsive to the needs, ideas, and concerns of individuals with lived experience, patients, and communities. It's now my pleasure to welcome her as moderator for this portion of our program.
Thank you so much, Tim, for this very kind introduction. And thank you for inviting me. So I'm very grateful to be here with all of you today. And I look forward to spending some time on reflecting on the idea of service with our fellow MIT alumni, as well as, of course, getting to know our speakers who will tell us a little bit more about the exciting projects that are currently happening and in which all of us can get involved in. But before I introduce our speakers, I would like to just pause for a moment and spend really a little bit of time on thinking of what service is and why we would even dedicate our valuable time to work with and for others. So perhaps it is not a coincidence that we are meeting today, the day after we celebrated the Martin Luther King's Jr. Day, which is otherwise known as the Day of Service. So let me just remind ourselves of what are the aims of this day. So it empowers individuals, strengthens communities, bridges barriers, creates solutions to social problems, and moves us closer to Dr. King's vision of a beloved community in which all people can share in the wealth of the earth. So perhaps today we have this great opportunity to be thinking about service and community together. So there is perhaps this very interesting and intrinsic relationship between both service and communities. So working not only for the communities, but with the communities. And this is one of the points I would like to be talking about with our speakers. So thinking again both about service providers, but also service recipients. So what can we learn from one another on this journey of service? So with that thought in mind, I would like to introduce you to our two wonderful speakers, Julio Coll and Javier Fernandez Portal Diaz Rio. Julio Coll graduated from the Complutense University of Madrid with a degree in biology and went on to get his PhD there in biochemistry with a thesis on lipid metabolism. Julio also attended MIT, where he obtained, imagine, an additional PhD in 1979 in biology, where he was working in blood formation. After his time at MIT, Julio returned to Spain, where he worked for two biotechnological companies on aquaculture and biotechnology in the 80s. In the 90s, he got a permanent position at INIA, which is a state research institution where his work centered on viral vaccines for aquacultured fish. He retired 2 years ago, but he continues to work at home in computational prediction of anti-COVID drugs, and he does volunteer work with high school students on their kombucha-inspired research, and of course, we're going to hear more details about this project today. Our second speaker, Javier Fernandez Portal Diaz Rio, graduated in 1998 from the Complutense University of Madrid with a degree in biology, focusing on genetics. Javier is currently a secondary teacher in Madrid at the Ritamar School, and previously he also spent time teaching in London at the Cedar School. Additionally, Javier is an examiner for the International Baccalaureate program, has served as a member of the steering committee of the Spanish Biology Olympiad since 2006, and as a representative of Spain at the International Biology Olympiad Committee since 2007. He has been a lecturer of bioethics at UCAM University since 2012. Javier and his students have participated in many science competitions, and they have received numerous awards throughout Spain and abroad. For this work, he was recognized by the Spanish Ministry of Education among teachers in Spain. Now in quotation, his work has been recognized as outstanding in promoting science among young students in EUCYS 2013, which was the 25th anniversary edition of that. And his most recent accolade was the third prize at the 2021 Regeneron International Science and Engineering Fair in California. This award led Javier and his students to be recognized on the Forbes Top 50 Awarded Spaniards list in December 2021. So Julio and Javier, before you go ahead, also huge congratulations on all of these accomplishments. We are, of course, looking forward to your presentation. So Julio and Javier, over to you.
Okay, I am going to talk to you about this double collaboration, which is the keyword is symbiosis. And we have a double symbiosis. And all postdoc, myself, and a young professor, Javier. And the other part of the symbiosis is animals, yeast, bacteria, and hopefully microalgae. In the lower part, in this slide, under the orange, you can see how the kombucha works. You have there gray bacteria, which feeds on sucrose and produce glucose to feed bacteria. The bacteria make the beverage, the healthy beverage kombucha, but also make a floating film of bacterial cellulose. That's the work mainly developed by Javier group of people, students, which are featured there to the left. What we propose in this project is to add sunlight energy to this culture using wastewater, nitrogen and phosphorus, and microalgae to substitute for sucrose. Sucrose is very expensive, and we target to get a cheaper kombucha, a cheaper bacterial cellulose. How do I get in this business? Well, I'm going to disappear from the scenery. And these things began before I began to study in university. There you have a photograph of myself that I was 14 years or something like that. And I made this, then I made university studies working on books rather than classes. I didn't attend too many classes. Then I made my PhD, as Dorota says, at MIT, at Madrid. And then I started to work with high school biology clubs. I organized myself these high school biology clubs by renting a small apartment and organizing the people who attended there. We did some excursions, get animals and studied them. Then I went to MIT. I made my PhD there, my second PhD there. I learned there two things very important for me, which was, one of them was study nature, not books. This is funny because this is in the front part of one of the many libraries of Woods Hole Oceanographic Institution, and it always stick to me. And then the other one is learn by doing, of course, an MIT typical saying. When I was back in Spain, I worked first in the 80s, I worked for two companies. One was called ITP, which we were hired to try to make an MIT-like project in Spain. And during this time, I was in charge of aquaculture and biotechnology. And I made my first macroalgae encounters. I got fascinated by these small creatures. And there are some of them working, living, dwelling at pH 1, which is sulfuric acid, is very high sulfuric acid, and they're happy there. At that time, I didn't found any application for that, but it always stick to me, that idea. I wrote a book about aquaculture. It was the first Spanish written book on aquaculture, 600 pages long. It's a big book. And then I worked for Invesgen in HIV diagnostic research. And back in Spain, I got a permanent position at INEA to work for viral vaccines in aquaculture. These are part of my dream teams to the right. Two of them work for the university. One of them was full professor, and the other two work for companies in Spain, one of them in vaccines. And during that time, I wrote a book about the use of microscope for children. I brought this book with my 6-year-old nephew, which is now in the 40s. And I tried to explain to young people, very young people, how to use the microscope, among other things, to grow microalgae. I also work in a high security lab at Valdeolmos in Madrid, where I serve as a 3-year director of research. The Valdeolmos work was organized by 10 research groups, one per virus. There were viruses very important in veterinary research, and also some zoonotic viruses that attack not only animals, but also men. In 2020, I got retirement, and I am now emeritus at INEA, and I got to work with greener kombucha. This is just one of the hardworking days at MIT to the left, and at INEA to the right. In this next slide, I show more or less placed through the years my contacts with the kombucha theme. You see the high school biology labs at the beginning of the 70s, then the microalgae pet project, which I held it for during all my INEA work. I wrote a book about children's microscopy, and then I met Javier. Well, I say he met me. And we start to make a symbiotic collaboration. During those years, the following 10 years or so, I worked very, very little because I was doing some kind of advice and giving him some talks. And then when I got retired, that were intensified a lot. And we, talking together, gave rise to the idea that I explained before, to add microalgae to the kombucha. What I am doing in Ducos Greener Kombucha? Well, first of all, hear and answer high schooler questions by phone, WhatsApp, or Zoom, because the visits now are, well, because of the pandemic, are not too recommended. I wrote lab guides for high school level. You know, you had to start up at the very low level chemistry concepts. And I described the experiments that they should do with microalgae. They are starting now a new group of people. Javier will tell you about that. Then I collect and digest the abundant bibliographic alerts, which are pushing these themes, because bacterial cellulose is a hot topic, and recommend the readings to the people, to the students. I also alert of the lab safety precautions they should take while doing these experiments, and moderate the excessive economic expectations that these things raise to the young people, and correct the few writings. But also increase my patience a lot. What I am trying to transmit to these fellows is the three things which I commented before. Study books rather than classes. People sometimes think that with going to classes is all done, and it's all started, not done. Study books rather than classes. The other one, I changed a little bit from the Boots Hall Library proposal. study nature and books. And the other one that I couldn't change because it's my best, learn by doing of MIT. Of course, they don't pay too much attention to this one. Well, that's all, folks. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Julio. So I will share my screen now. Let me see if it works. I don't know if it works. Okay, I hope you're seeing some pictures. So I will be short. So Julio has explained most of the ideas that I wanted to share with you. So as he said, I am a school teacher. I teach, well, I also work in the university, but very little. And in my time in the secondary school, many times I have many ideas of topics that I would like to investigate. So I'm full of ideas, but I'm very short in terms of money and time to dedicate, right? Because I have to teach lots of lessons and so on. And after a few years working at the school, I started to do some different things like the participation in biology Olympiads. Also, I was asked to be part of the steering committee of the Spanish Biology Olympiad and the international one as well. And I also did some research projects during a few years, different topics like a study of electromagnetic fields in living beings, or we built a microbial fuel cell with bacteria. We discovered 2 new species of bacteria producing electricity. We got many prizes in this last 20 years. The last one was already commented here. That was the participation in Regeneron ICEF 2021 in California. I didn't know about this competition, so I learned about this year. We participated. We had the opportunity to participate this year as well because we got the first prize in Spain in the most important competition, that is Jóvenes Investigadores. So it's like the ministry official competition. So during my work in the school, when some people saw that I was doing research projects with my students, someone told me about Julio Coll. So Julio is a researcher, so he's got lots of experience, perspective, and so when I had the opportunity to meet him, I asked him to, from that moment on, I asked him to give us advice in all the projects that we were doing. And it has been very useful and very good fun. And as he said, his work has increased a lot in the last period of time because he's retired and he's got theoretically more time now. And the last project that we are working on is very interesting. Is well, the idea is basically the production of microbial cellulose to replace the cellulose that comes from plants. And it would be very interesting for the environment because it produces very little contamination, and also well, the only problem is that it's more expensive than the production of cellulose from plants. So during the last confinement, I was thinking about an idea that I discussed with Julio a long time ago. He was telling me about the origin of plants. He told me that something that I knew, but he reminded me that idea. I don't know why, because it was in a different time. But he said that the origin of plants was the symbiosis between fungi and algae. So in that moment, I was working with this symbiosis of bacteria, microbes like yeasts and other stuff. And the problem was that it was very expensive to feed them to produce cellulose. So I came up with the idea of why don't we try to make a lichen, like a symbiotic community with a new roommate that would be an algae capable of capturing energy from the sun to feed the kombucha, so the production of cellulose would be cheaper. So that is what we are working on at the moment, and we're very excited because it seems to be, well, it's the first steps, but yes, it seems to be working more or less. So that is what we are. Well, I said that I was going to share these pictures. I didn't say anything about that. These are just pictures of different competitions and awards that we got during these last years, and Olympiads. This is a dog that is the first cloned dog in South Korea. This is the Mendel Museum. Myself, very young, my students, many prizes that we got thanks to this research project. This is the microbial fuel cell that we produced. It was the best microbial fuel cell produced at the moment, better than those produced in the university research groups, and also cheaper because instead of using very expensive materials, we used, just as you can see, plastic bottles and electrodes that were very cheap. And we were lucky because we produced better batteries, microbial fuel cells than researchers. So, and the last one was this one, this competition that ICEF Regeneron. For that reason, my students were selected to be in the list of Forbes. And the last thing I share with you is this poster in which you can see the microbial cellulose that we produced. I don't know if I can, yes, zoom in. Sometimes it is perfectly transparent. Sometimes it is not so transparent. It has this aspect. And it was very good fun to work with these students. And well, that would be all, I think. Well, thank you very much to the MIT for the opportunity to share with you these projects. I was going to share a video, but I think it is not necessary because it would be 10 minutes. I can tell you that it is available in a link that I gave to you. So if someone is interested, if anyone is interested, I can send the link as well. Thank you very much.
So thank you, Julio and Javier, once again for a very wonderful presentation. And I very much look forward to discussing with you some of the aspects in more detail. We are also looking forward to receiving some questions from the audience. So in case you do have a question, there is a Q&A section in the Zoom. So you can actually find it at the bottom of your Zoom screen. So please go ahead, post your questions in there, and we will try to get to as many questions as possible. However, in the meantime, let's start with some questions, perhaps more of warming questions, clarifying questions. So Julio and Javier, can you clarify for us when was DUCO started and how many students have participated in this initiative so far?
Well, the last project of DUCO was 2 years, 1 year and a half or something like that, no? Javier?
Well, the microbial cellulose project started before I went to London, so it was 2011 or 12. But the last part with the DUCO group was very recent. I mean, 1 year ago or something like that.
Yeah, a little bit more than 1 year.
Yeah.
And now the people engaged in the project is in the process of being formed, right?
Yeah.
Because how many are they?
There's now we have like 10 students involved.
10 students, but they are, you know, you have to teach them how to.
Yes, they're very young. They need to learn lots of things. Yeah.
Because the last projects that won so many awards, yeah, had been done by other people who already finished the high school. They are now in the university, right?
Yeah, they are still, 2 of them are still in contact, but they are starting the university degree, but they are I mean, they are starting, they are not so involved now at the moment.
So
Yes,
we are just starting.
Yeah.
I mean, that sounds great, of course. And of course, I already can, and we can get a sense of the journeys, right? It's interesting probably for you to see that actually students who you started working with, they go to university now. So I assume you keep in touch, and how do the students, like, how much of an impact they can have once they graduate from your program? How would you like to involve them?
I didn't get the question, sorry. So
So my understanding is, and please correct me if I misunderstood, but I understand that there are some students who already kind of graduated from your program and
yes.
attend university.
Yeah.
So when you keep in touch,
Yeah.
how do you think the students can be involved? Is that
Yeah,
potentially
well,
the vision?
that is something new because I think it's, in my case, it's the first time that students, after their stay in the school, they want to keep in touch and still get involved in the project. This is the first time it happens. So we are looking for ways for them to be useful, to enjoy and to be part of the team. So that's something that we are building at the moment.
Perfect. And so thinking of building the team, and perhaps we can discuss a little bit the idea of inclusion and, how do you make sure that you do not miss anybody as part of this opportunity? So, thinking that some students, of course, are very talented and they will just, approach you to be involved. But
Yeah.
if there are some students who are, talented,
Yeah.
but perhaps, wouldn't come forward, what are some of the strategies?
Yeah. Well, in my case, in the school where I work, most of the students know about me and the projects I do. So when they are interested, many times they come to me and they ask to be part of some of the teams that I have working on some projects. And I prefer to know them before accepting them, because it is good to know if they are good students or if they just want to skip lessons, because sometimes they do that to go to the lab, or if they are going to be good candidates. It is not easy to choose the right persons. Now I'm, as Julio said, I have a new team composed of 10 people more or less, and I'm very happy with one of them, not with the rest. So I have to, first of all, try to make them work harder, be more involved, responsible. And after some months, if they don't do well, I have to find a way to invite them to leave or to do something, because otherwise it's not useful for anyone.
I think it's the hardest work. I mean, to do research is hard, but to get the people is harder.
Yeah. In fact, one of them, Guillermo Canosa, one of the two students that got so many awards in the last years, this last month sent me a message saying, Don Javier, I now I understand how hard it is to make people work and to move people, because I asked him to try and make the smaller students, the younger students work. And he said, it is so difficult. So something difficult, yeah.
Yeah, they have, from an outsider point of view, they have peaks of activity. You know, one day they want to do everything, and then weeks of silence.
Yeah. Also, it's not so easy because, I mean, you have to go to your lessons. You have to, in fact, this year I have so many lessons that it's also very difficult for me to spend time in the project. So, but for them, it depends many times on the schedule of the school. Yeah. But the good students manage to find a way to do things in order and in time. So, yeah.
Perfect. So it sounds like the program is, of course, very rigorous. I'm just wondering if you would like to, talk perhaps about, the balance, of course, in that effort to recruit additional students, and when you have to sell the idea, how do you maintain the balance between the rigorous versus, I guess, some fun aspect, which is something that, both of you, and especially you, Julio,
Yeah.
a bit alluded to in your presentation.
That is something that I'm questioning myself every time, because you don't know if you have to be harder or not so hard, because they are just kids. They like the idea of working in the lab. They're interested, but you cannot force them because it's something that is volunteer. So it's a difficult equilibrium. Yeah.
And Julio, would you like to add something to that? I found it very interesting how, in fact, one of your big projects was to write a book for children about using a microscope working in the lab.
Oh, that was wonderful. It was a good experience with my 6-year-old nephew, and we have a great time together. Because one of the things that was very striking to me is that I have a binocular, right? And I was in one of the oculars and he was in the other. And we were watching protozoos to come through the field. And I said, look, this is an Stylonychia. And next time we saw it, he said, hey, a Stylonychia. I was astonished because 6-year-old fellow, and he still remembers the names of the animals, or they were animals mostly because they moved, and we saw there, and it still reminds me from time to time. Hey, you remember when? Yes, it was a very good experience for me. I have a great time writing the book.
Also,
but I began to write a second part, but I didn't finish it.
Also, when I told them to my students that a researcher from the MIT was going to help us with the project, they were absolutely excited. So that is something to thank Julio, of course, and the MIT, because it's for them is a very, very, very exciting thing. Yeah.
Of course. So you have these wonderful stories of, having impact. So, when we think about impact as part of this project, I mean, I myself see it as, what kind of impact you guys have on students, like in terms of, what kind of impact the project itself has on the students, and also what impact it has on you personally. Would you like to elaborate on that?
Right. I mean, I think that for the students, I have contact with many of them, because in the last years, I got like more than 40 awards, national or international awards, in different projects with different students. And I keep in contact with them, and they are many of them are now 30 something, or they are older, and they look back and they say, wow, this was an amazing experience. I learned so many things. I used my free time in a very good way. I learned very useful things. I made very good friends, and they really consider that an amazing experience. So that is very, very nice to hear, because I mean, you have spent your time and efforts, but you see that they really consider that to be something interesting. So, and for me, that is my payment, because this is, for me, is something that I do for free, and it is something very demanding, and so it takes time and effort, but I think it's worth it.
Well, in my case, I have not too much contact with them directly, but for myself has been a renaissance. I don't know how I feel younger now because I try to understand how they think, what the problems are, and well, one of the things is to get some interest in the things that we propose. And you had to work hard, because it's not the same to talk with a colleague which knows what you are talking about and blah 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 blah, and you had to explain things in a very layman way. One of the things that I learned in MIT, I mean, in MIT, they told me to explain things with simple words rather than using, you know, like somebody calls like squid ink, you know, the squids, when they want to go outside their predator, they throw ink, black ink, which is something that many you know, experts do. You know, they use a specialized word that a few people understand, but not many people. And it's like a defensive way of explaining things. You know, I think was Einstein who said that if you cannot explain something to your mother or grandmother, you don't know what you are talking about. And that's really something to think about when you talk to these young people, you know, because you think they understand you and they don't understand you unless you go to his level. It's quite difficult to do it.
Yeah, exactly right. I think it's so important, you know, this accessibility, and as you've explained, Julio, you know, being able to explain it in easy terms is potentially also very important for you to make sure that you can recruit the right students at the right time as well, isn't it?
Also, it's funny because this project, what it proposes is the use of microbial cellulose. And last year, I received a message from the president of the Association of the Paper Industry in Spain, saying that that the industry is not so contaminating, is not so bad as we said. He sent us information about that, and I answered to him saying, "Well, I'm just reading information that is published in scientific magazines. I'm not talking about anything that I made up." So, but it's something that is very interesting to investigate, because the future, I think it goes that way. The cellulose should be produced in that way, because the contamination from the paper industry is huge. So it's also exciting to know, I mean, to be working in something that I believe that is interesting and maybe something that changes in the history.
Material cellulose is being made now commercially, but for high biomedicals, you know, high value biomedicals, because it's very costly to do it. And the way we are thinking in these kombucha experiments is a low value material cellulose, be able to substitute or help at least to the industrial paperwork, rather than competing with some people, which is part of them in MIT. There is a group working on this. This bacterial cellulose to incorporate yeasts that are manipulated genetically to make some biomedicals. This is very high value product, and we cannot work to compete with those people, you know.
Since now we are discussing kind of also the bigger picture of this project, which is of course a research project, I was wondering, you know, can we talk a little bit more about how to ensure that your project actually responds and meets the needs of kind of, you know, local communities or even global communities, since it is a research project with potentially, you know, very much wider impact. Would you like to talk about that as well?
But the paper cellulose will have an enormous impact in everything, you know. But it's very difficult to get it, okay?
Yes, I mean, it's the most contaminating industry. The tons of water that is contaminated because of this industry is amazing. I have a house in the northwest of Spain, in Galicia, and on the way there, 1 hour or 1 hour and a half from my house, there is a factory, paper factory. When you are next to it, the smell is terrible. So they say that they don't contaminate. It's obvious that they do. But also I sometimes I think, well, it is more expensive to produce bacterial cellulose, of course, but it is also more expensive to produce roads than to not to do it, or to produce many structures in cities and so on. But that's the way we live. So I think in the future we have to stop that process of contamination and find a way. If it is cheaper, that would be better, of course. But even if it is not so cheap, it should be changed. It should change, I think.
See, the problem with the plant cellulose is that the cellulose is very contaminated with lignin and all kinds of things that the trees has. And to remove that from the cellulose is very expensive and very contaminated. Among other things, they have to use sulfuric acid. And you have to get rid of that. And the environment, I mean, nobody says, hey, you have to pay because you are contaminating this river. If they say so, probably the production of plant cellulose will be too much higher.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, well, thank you for that. Perhaps bringing this experience once again closer to the students' experience. So Javier, you mentioned that you took your students to ICEF, to various competitions, important competitions, and you were very successful. Can you tell us a little bit more about some of the lessons learned, what feedback you received, and what are the steps forward?
In regards with this project or in general?
I mean, whatever you feel is useful. Perhaps let's start with this project.
I mean, the feedback we got from the competition in Spain was that they were very surprised with the idea. They wished us the best, obviously, for the idea to move forward. And in the US competition, they asked as well many questions, technical questions in terms of, well, we actually took our bacterial cellulose. We went to a factory in Catalonia and we made actual paper with that cellulose. And then we studied the quality of the paper. And the standards of quality were in some cases even better than the plant cellulose paper. And in other variables, it was perfectly the same or similar. And so it is possible to use the cellulose, the microbial cellulose, to make paper. And the problem is, well, there are some problems, obviously, as we have said already, that are the cost and also the scale up of the industry. Obviously, if you are going to produce tons of bacterial cellulose, you have to think about the factory, how you're going, if the bacteria are going to behave in the same way in a low scale or in the bigger scale. There are some other issues to study. And in these competitions, we discussed about these technical issues and yeah. I don't know if I am answering the question or not. Am I? Yeah.
Okay, that sounds perfect. I think we have time for one last question, which is really, how can anybody interested contribute to this initiative? Something that is of interest to our audience as well. Any thoughts on that?
Right. Julio, you want to say?
Well, I would like to have somebody to review the bibliography. I mean, I make alerts, you know, and in several places, and I almost have no time to read everything that is being published in this matter. I have also another project with anti-COVID, right? And it's too much to read, and somebody to digest, because not all that is published is worthy to follow up or to get it to the lab or to experiment or get an idea. But there are too much work.
Yeah,
Just for
we
that.
are also we are also looking for sponsors. Obviously, if there's any company interested or anyone interested in the idea, obviously, I mean, for me, it's not possible to spend enough time in the project because I have my job that is to teach. All right, so it's complicated for me. I would love to spend more time in the project, obviously. And also Julio is working with another project related to the COVID. So there was a company, a French company that approached us. They were interested in the possibility to give some money to hire someone to work full-time in the project. We still haven't heard the answer, but we are waiting for that. But we don't expect, we are not very optimistic. So we're still looking for people that would be interested in the idea. So.
Yeah, we need some students, also high school students, because this is what it moves us now. And, you know, perhaps to open it to other schools may be possible. I don't know. If we cannot find here some people interested, maybe some others. It just occurred to me now. So
yeah, well, I think the problem with other students in other schools is that you have to organize it's not so easy. I mean, you need to have a teacher that knows how to take them from classes and organize everything. But I mean that I think that if we could find a sponsor, that would be great. And as Julio said, if someone is interested and has the capacity to digest all the bibliography, to make it easier to have a better picture, bigger picture of the whole topic, that would be also interesting.
Well, thank you for that. So just to check in with you before we kind of move on to some closing remarks. So you would be happy for others, you know, who potentially have similar ideas or would like to replicate your idea to get in touch with you. And this is how you guys could potentially brainstorm some ideas around these issues as well.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Dorota.
Thank you.
Well, thank you so much, Julio and Javier. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you for your presentations and, of course, a wonderful discussion. I'm sure that our audience found it equally engaging and inspiring. So we wish you, of course, all the best, and we look forward to seeing the program that you shared with us today really flourish in the weeks, months ahead, and hopefully throughout this event, you know, we will be able to coin some additional collaborations. So that's great. Also, special thanks for the program to Whitney, Espich, Annalisa, Weigel, and Team Mansfield for their participation today. Also, thank you to Kim Hunter and Diane Lishka, who put this great program together. And thank you to our audience, to all the attendees. I'm so pleased that every one of you could join us today. So again, we all hope that it was inspiring to you, and that in the next, again, weeks, months ahead, you will be able to share with us your own service projects, or perhaps join some projects that are already ongoing. So again, best wishes from all of us, and thank you so much for your attendance tonight.
Thanks for joining us. And for more information on how to connect with the MIT Alumni Association, please visit our website.